a brief discussion about labels, about how do I, is this the British neoconservative intellectual talking head proponent of a think tank who's has his thoughts on Islam and immigration and all this, and you know, is an author of 4 books, soon to be 5, I think.
Yeah.
And that led to some concern about labels that I think we share in many areas.
By the way, in Britain, if you introduce somebody as an intellectual, it's death. Nothing that kills something more.
I have no fear of being introduced like that anywhere.
Yeah, no, I am concerned about labels these days because we were talking before about the nature of the internet and that nobody expected it to go this way of like unbelievable vitriol and rage and sort of grasping for short-term explanations for people. And yeah, political labels and indeed some religious labels become really unhelpful because they become a sort of way to not listen to somebody in advance. You know, some of it can be useful, obviously, but by this stage, I kind of feel most political labels are a real problem.
I wonder how much of it is maybe. I don't necessarily want to label people as excessively lazy or frustrated, but I think that has to be a part of it where everything is a label. Every word we use is a label for some concept, and so we use this to communicate, and we're generally pretty good at it in the sense that we're not falling apart at the roots of civilization. We're able to, you understand me, I understand you, even though I don't have that particular accent. We've sorted it out a little bit. But when we talk about the labels that we put on broader concepts, what I find happens quite often is they're either used as a way to dismiss without any actual substantive conversation, or they're used as a shorthand where you just assume the people you're talking to have the same understanding of the label that you do.
Right.
And that's not necessarily the case.
No, and I don't want to belabor the point, but transatlantic, it's not a consistent language about politics. Where I'm from, liberal means something different from what it means here, for instance. And there's all sorts of words like that don't travel. But no, I mean, I think that generally the problem of labels has been accentuated by social media, which has all sorts of advantages, has some serious drawbacks. And the main drawback, I mentioned this to Matt earlier, is that people who do the sort of things we do used to craft what we said and what we wrote in order to make sure, among other things, that an honest critic couldn't misunderstand us. And the strange thing about the era of social media and the internet is that you end up having to craft what you say and write in order to try to make sure that a dishonest critic also can't misrepresent you. It's an almost impossible task, but one we're obviously trying to find our way through.
It's when it comes to the sorting out which are the honest critics and which are the dishonest critics, I find that's actually getting more difficult as well, because while I pretend to read minds on stage, I can't actually read minds. And so if somebody comes after something I've said on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, I have to spend a great deal of time before I even decide if I'm going to respond or how I'm going to respond. Is this individual confused? Have I not crafted my message clearly enough? Or is there some way I could reword the message to rehabilitate this individual? Or are they one of the dishonest ones, the people who are sometimes labeled the outrage brigade by my friend Seth? They're just never going to be happy no matter what you say, because you didn't say it exactly the way they wanted to in the time frame they wanted.
Yeah, what I get is you didn't say it all in the 60 seconds we gave you.
You know, when Matt and Douglas are discussing this whole question about labeling people and attributing labels to a person, to an entity, to an organization, to something out there, I think both sides use it. All sides use it, as a matter of fact. The left uses it, the middle uses it, the right uses it, conservatives, liberals, independents, academia, the alphabet networks. We all use it. And we all are now using it in this day and age to politicize, to weaponize, And the question becomes is, which side uses it more effectively? Which side uses it more to be derisive, to be demeaning, to be prejudicial, to be racist, to be bigoted, to basically go on the offense? And I believe that, as I said before, as I'm saying, that all sides use it. The question is, who uses it more? Now, I may be biased because I'm coming from the right as a conservative, but I really feel that the left uses it with considerably more force, more conviction than the right does. The linguistic lingo that the left uses with words to get as modifiers, to get the emotions, percolating, so to speak, in people, to get them fired up. I think it's no question at all, hands down, the left uses it much more effectively, than the right does. I mean, look at the playing cards, the political playing deck, the card deck, the political card deck that's being utilized by the left. Look at the words that they throw out there. It used to be racist, used to be the big one. Used to literally shut down all debate immediately. Because whenever it was that R card was thrown on the table or the bigot card was thrown on the table, it sent shivers and quivers down the spine of the political right, of the political opponents that the left threw it at, because that was the thing you didn't want to be called, even if it wasn't even true, but just to be labeled with it. The narrative became that that person or that entity or that organization was racist, was bigoted. That is to a much lesser extent, going on now. But now they're using another word. Insurrectionist. The I word has come out, right? Islamophobic, transphobic, LGBTQIA plus MOUSE phobic. Labels are thrown out there. And I think we just have to learn to live with it. And we've got to be just as good as the left is in being effective with it, in terms of, but not to overuse it, but to use it effectively. And when the narrative demands that it be used. Otherwise, it's just going to be another word, just like racist or bigoted. Anyways, folks, that's what we have on tap for you today. We've got Matt DILLAHUNTY and Douglas Murray talking with each other. We're going to get right back to that right now.
Of life or something, it's often hard to hit that moment.
Yes. It's in the debates that I've often had with religious apologists, there's something called the Gish Gallop, which is named after Dwayne Gish, where the apologist will present 20 things that are wrong,
Right.
each of which would take you an hour to 10 hours to properly rebut.
Yes.
And then whichever ones you don't address, when it's their turn to speak next, they'll say, my opponent failed to address points 3, 4, 7, and therefore I win.
Yeah. Well, the Times of London the other day reported on this Flat Earth Society that's now booming, at least booming to the extent that Flat Earth Societies can for the time being. But I mean, they had I don't know, they had a conference the other day in London, and they got like 300 flat earthers who all had these points about like the horizon. No one had actually been to it. How do you know? And there was some amazing. Then they had T-shirts and things. They obviously want people to know they're flat earthers and how dim they are. But we weren't expecting that. We weren't expecting the Flat Earth Society to get a boom in the foreseeable future, and yet there they are.
I can remember years ago, and I don't know how many people here watched a lot of episodes of The Atheist Experience, but there was an episode where I basically said, well, nobody believes in the Greek gods anymore. And that was a mistake because the emails came in. It didn't come pouring in, they trickled in, but it was still...
What did they say?
They said, oh, you're wrong. I actually still do believe in the Greek gods. And I was like, oh, that's a good joke. And then they were clearly offended and outraged that I would dismiss this as a joke. And so I had a brief conversation with one of them, and it's not worth repeating. But to be fair, it encouraged me to exercise more caution in
Right.
making, grandiose claims of nobody believes this anymore. Oh, somebody does.
You sort of hope that they're in a terrible internecine war with people who still worship the Roman gods. They just go at it late at night.
Yes. I've done much the same thing with Christian apologists on occasion. There was an event where I had done a video about slavery, and every Christian apologist has a different pathway to try to rehabilitate the Bible's position on slavery. And so I was standing there with 4 of them, and they were all trying to rehabilitate this in a different way.
Right.
And so it was perfect because I just said, you 4 sort it out. When you figure out what the right answer is from God, come back and I'll address that one. Because until you do, I don't see any reason to address 4 different answers from God. Why hasn't he cleared this up already?
Yeah. Were there any plausible arguments from them?
I don't know. I never heard back from them after they... I suspect that there was not agreement.
At least they'd all agreed it was bad. And they were
You
trying to...
would hope so, but you would be mistaken.
Really?
Because there are people who go down that road that say that...
Well, folks, we hope you enjoyed this little video vignette of Douglas Murray and Matt Dillahunty. You've been watching the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show. I've been your host. My name is Dr. Nasir, and if you haven't done so already, we'd love for you to subscribe to our channel, like, share, and follow so y'all know what to do. Take a look at our other video links above and below. My final thought is always, when you're right, and when you're left, you're wrong. Until next time, folks, take care and stay safe.